everyone, Ivy Lee Gaming here, and today we're playing Dragonheir Silent Gods. For today's video, we are going to go to our last boss of this Chief Challenge, Continental Challenge Chaos Shadow fight for the Awakening the Spring of Iskalland event. Today's video is sponsored by Dragonheir Silent Gods, my favorite sponsor because it's my favorite game that I've played in a long time. Be sure to join us for Season 3, Dive Deep, Battle Peak. There's a ton of new heroes, new bosses, and lots to explore. Be sure to download via Android, iOS, Mac, PC, Steam, or Epic Games if you haven't already, and use the currently working promo codes. Alright, and if you haven't seen it already, I have done videos on the other bosses that are here, the 5 other bosses. For these videos, I talk about each boss's skills and what we're going to need to combat them, suggest some heroes, and then I showcase my team that I'm currently using. But this is not about my team or legendary heroes, legendary artifacts, yada yada yada. This is meant to help people get ideas and understand the boss and maybe notice some things that they didn't quite at first. So this is meant to be helpful, but then I also do a little bit of a showcase. Alright, so the final one we're going to take a look at is the fire boss, the big scary dragon. This one is a bit overtuned. A lot of the others are quite easy, especially the radiance boss. I'll show you something funny. I've actually got a lot of teams already prepped for that one. And then the others aren't too bad, but this one is very hard. And this one is like only easy if you have Rook, so to speak. Like super easy anyway. Otherwise, it's a pretty challenging boss fight. But I was able personally to put together a team with Corrosion without Rook to get the job done. So I figured I'll show that as well. But we have the fire boss here. Again, weak to poison damage. And then when we're going to view the info here. Alright, so Undying Flame. For each stack of buff the monster has, increases its damage dealt by 10. And then immune to control effects and the typical damage bonus buff. Alright, so it deals fire damage to all enemies and gains 1 stack of damage reduction. So each stack decreases damage taken by 5%. So same thing here, he's going to gain 1 stack again for 10 seconds. So this is going to loop around, but he's only going to have like 2 stacks on at a time. So it's not too bad. But then we have here, soars to the sky, calls young dragons for assistance. After 15 seconds, it returns to deal fire damage to all enemies and sacrifices the young dragons. Each sacrificed young dragon grants it 1 stack of damage reduction for 15 seconds. So if you can't kill the dragonlings before the boss comes back within that 15 seconds, you're going to get yet another buff on the boss. So that would be 3 buffs on the boss, which means, yeah, the boss is going to do increased damage as well. So you don't want buffs on the boss, pretty much. So a buff stripper could be used here, although it's not really ideal. Or not necessarily needed, I should say. You could use Vorash. He is part of the synergy this season with Poison. We have Poison and Ice, so Vorash to get rid of the buffs could certainly be a great option. But you can, again, you can get away with doing this boss fight without those extra things, honestly. As long as you are killing the young dragons, as they call them here, then it's not so bad. Alright, let's go ahead into the fight and take a look. So I did try this. I'm already prepping my teams. This is what I was saying. This is funny. This is versus the Radiance boss. I'm already prepping some teams that can do 22 million. But yeah, my first Radiance team is actually ironically, my Corrosion team. So here we are. We're going to use a little bit of an OP team. Yes, I know, Ergander and Ogak. But you probably could do, honestly, I do think with the right timings, the right survivability, you could use more budget options like Furboth plus another healer or support. Alright, and for my team here, I do have a pretty solid team, but without Rook, of course. Security is not fully booked though, unfortunately. But Whisk here is a huge help. He hits so many times using Witch's Remains for me. I do have Sacradia or Sacradia or however the hell you say her name in the organ pipe, so she can give attack to some of the heroes at least. Of course, Whisk is actually melee. I do have a Dargo, I always forget his name, in Ravatrix Roots as well, and Emperor for damage. I probably should put her in Emperor as well, but you know, gear is limited, and this helps to give her more attack for her passive. I do have Ogak as our healer, and he's also in the horn to boost damage. Ergander is here not necessarily to really be a tank because, well, you don't really need a tank for this boss because the boss does hit all enemies, and all enemies. So you don't really need a tank. You just need someone to, you know, provide the things you need. Like attack penalty is really important, especially for using Emperor sets or just, yeah, for the boss to do less damage. And Ergander's really good at keeping attack penalty up, so that's why I have him here. Although I could use Furbot or someone else, but he was who I ended up using because I was debating using Furbot and another team. Yeah, and I already had Ergander built, and why not? So I was trying to play around with my timings and get fancy for Ogak, and I found it just didn't work. It just was terrible. My timings here with the sets I have with 11.5 and 19.1 were honestly pretty perfect. I couldn't believe how well it synced up naturally. So it is what it is. And here I have Whisk going first because he's in Witch's Remains. And then I have our others going here afterward. So yeah, simple as that. But you don't need Ergander per se at all. You don't even really need a tank. But Furbot is a pretty good option overall because he can provide healing and attack penalty can be timed if you want to time it. For me, Ergander actually pushes back the ultimate energy here for the boss with his battle skill. So that does affect things a little bit and does make the timings a little bit more quirky. So again, you could always manual. We always forget about manualing in your battles because you just assume like you want to set up presets, but sometimes you just need to manual to make sure the ultimates are happening when you want them to happen. So this might be one of those fights. And overall, this is one of those fights where a lot of people just are not going to get 22 million. This boss is overtuned, it's very hard, and Rook is the only way to kind of guarantee an easy clap answer. So the positioning is very important here. For the sake of the little dragonlings that drop, depending on how fast you kill them, if you don't kill them very fast and you have your ranged people in this line instead of back one more spot where they are here, they will get attacked by those little young dragons. And I actually had my Sacradia dying because of that. So I had to move everybody back to this line. He's gonna come up. So that's why I chose to get a healer where we know there's gonna be more all allies or multiple heals. And it doesn't have to be like Furbot where they need to be more next to them to take advantage of like this one at least. But yeah, I'll show you what I mean here with the little young dragons. So at first it starts off a little wonky with timings, but after a couple rounds it actually stays really well as far as my Ogak doing his immortality at just the right time. So I'm glad it worked out this way. So look, the dragonlings are there, the young dragons. They turn around and they face the frontline heroes. But if the other heroes are one space forward toward the dragon, the young dragons actually start attacking the ranged people instead. So here we have it. You're going to see I attack the boss a lot instead of the young dragonlings. But it ends up working out just right for this team. It really is kind of crazy. And I don't always kill them, per se. So this is far from perfect. You should be saving... Like, a lot of people are going to be timing your ultimates versus the dragonlings, your young dragons, so you're making sure to kill them before the boss comes back down. But because I have Ogak, I could kind of survive the boss coming back down even in the later runs. But it does affect how much damage the boss does and takes, so keep that in mind. Same with those buffs, because I'm not stripping the buffs, they're affecting our damage a lot. Alright, here we are on the final bit. As you can see, we did have some people die a little early, but we hit the 22 million. And honestly, with this boss, I was fine with that. I was fine with people dying early. I just kind of wanted to hit the goal. I did not expect much higher. Could I have manual to optimize this? Yes. So that's just one of those things you have to decide if you're going to do it or not. Try to manual something, especially if you're using Ogak, getting his timing perfect. I tried getting fancy with my timings and everything was just a hot mess, honestly. The more fancy I tried to get with perfect timings, I swear the more I messed it up. It was just not fun. So I found these timings to work the best for me personally, and I just was willing to let the couple heroes die early and still hit our 22 million. So I think this is fine. Personally, this is a boss I'm not going to be fighting more than likely. If you have similar heroes, like if you have some of these corrosion heroes and you want to use your corrosion heroes in a fight, you can actually fight against the Radiance boss once we go to Otherworld Exploration instead. Maybe I'll make a video about that, but yeah, this is a really hard boss that is not as attainable for most players. I think without a rook, it is what it is. It's just really hard to get 22 million. So keep that in mind, guys. Don't stress too much if this one is just really difficult for you. This is hard content. And unfortunately, it's not changed by the time we got to it. After some testing, and yeah, it's a difficult one. So luckily the others aren't so bad, so we can skip this one entirely in Otherworld. But yeah, that's all for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. Hope the conversation was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Be sure to download via Android, iOS, Mac, PC, Steam, or Epic Games if you haven't already. And thanks again to Dragonheir Silent Gods for sponsoring today's video.